Let's be real. The first time you do a thing, it's gonna suck. The first time you release a pattern, the first time you tech edit a pattern, the first time you dye a yarn, it's gonna suck. It's going to be awful. You're gonna want to run and hide. You're going to never want to do this thing ever again. That's the reality. But, and this is a big but, it does get better. It gets easier. It gets better with every attempt that you make at doing this thing. Of course, the first time is going to be awful. You're going to feel like, why am I even doing this? I can't do this. But every new attempt, you're getting better. You're learning more. And the more you learn, the better it gets, because now you have new information to put into this thing, this pattern, this yarn, this tech editing process, that now that you can do more, you can do better. And look, being a creative entrepreneur is not going to be easy. There's going to be a lot of trials and trepidation and just feelings of self-doubt and imposter syndrome. It's going to come at you every which way that you look. The difference between those who thrive, those who continues to do this work year after year versus someone who just tries it and then just quit, the difference is that one continued even though it was hard. One continued even though it was messy and not perfect, right? That's the difference between those who make it and those who are just sitting there on the sideline, waiting and hoping. That's the difference. The difference is that one of them decided, I'm going to go for it regardless of how messy and gross and how painful it is. And then there are those who decide it's not for them. And that's fine. If you decide that you no longer want to be on this journey, that's fine. But then you can't complain about those who are actually doing the thing that you wish you were doing, and seeing how easy it appears to them, because it's not easy. A lot of us, it looks easy for us, but it's not. You don't see all the heartache. You don't see all the difficulties we went through and are going through. But if you want to get to that place that you want, you got to be clear on that vision. What do you actually want? And once you're clear on that, then the sky's the limit. You can make it happen, but you have to be clear on where you want to go, and resign yourself to the fact that in the beginning, it's going to be messy. It's going to be hard. And look, we all just want to have these pretty pictures. We want it to be perfect, but entrepreneurship, being creative, is not perfect. And if you're looking for perfection, you're distracting yourself, because perfection is distraction. Perfection does not really exist. So if you're seeking that, if you're pursuing perfection, then you are at this place where you're just not ready to do the real work yet. And you're using perfection as an excuse. You're using it to distract you from doing the work that you really ought to be doing. Because if it's not perfect, does that mean it's not valuable? Does that mean it doesn't have any worth? Does that mean that you shouldn't be doing it? So yes, the very first time you try to create a pattern, the first time you edit a pattern, the first time you dye yarn, it's going to suck. You're going to put it out into the world and maybe nobody wants it. But what can you learn from that experience? What can you take away from that experience to make it better for the next time that you try? Right? We look at these things that we're doing as creatives as having an end result, but as having this process where we're trying these things, and every attempt we're learning, we're building, we're getting better, so that the next attempt we're using that experience and making it better. And then the next experience, it's getting better. When we talk about, banking and compound interest, right? We hear about you put money in, it grows over time. That's the same thing here. You put the experience in and it gets better over time. It gets better. It will never be perfect. It will never, ever be perfect. So if you're in pursuit of perfection, you're setting yourself up for failure. But instead, Look at how can you be better today than you were yesterday. It's about building on what you have, what you've learned, and getting better every single day. What can you take away from this experience to make the next experience a little bit easier, a little bit better, a little bit closer to what you have in your mind? And yes, no one wants to show up and have messy work. No one wants to be embarrassed in front of the internet. And the reality is, not that many people are watching in the beginning. So, my recommendation is to always take those L's up front when you don't have a huge following, right? When you don't have a lot of people watching you and studying your every move. Make those mistakes now. Take those L's. Be imperfect, be messy now, so that when you start to grow your audience and you start to make bigger moves, you have some experiences behind you to help you to get closer to what you have in mind. So yes, we all want to have those pretty perfect lives, right? Maybe you remember when Instagram having those perfect grids were the thing that everybody was all about. Right? Maybe you remember that. And I was always the person who was like, I can't make my grid that pretty. I just can't do it. And now we're at the point where, we don't want perfect. And I think we've always been at that place where we don't want perfect. We don't want to see perfect people. We want to see real life. We want to see the reality. We want to see how other people are living messy lives, because that's more relatable, right? So get comfortable. Get comfortable with having your first pattern not being exactly as perfect as you have it in your mind's eye. Get comfortable with having your first edit not being as amazing as you hope. Let's get comfortable with your first yarn not being the blowout success that you wished it, that you hope it would be, because that doesn't mean it won't be tomorrow or the next day, right? And I talk about this all the time inside of Pattern Partnership, and I talk about it with my one-on-one coaching clients. One pattern, one event won't make or break your whole business. It will not make or break your whole career. It's a series of work. It's a series of you showing up consistently and putting your work out there and showing that you are capable. It's that consistency piece. So if you're thinking, oh, well, this one pattern, this one yarn, this one edit isn't perfect, my whole business is over. If you're thinking that, then you're making excuses and you're using it as a distraction from doing the real work that you need to be doing. So mistakes will happen, right? They always happen. We are humans. We are prone to mistakes. It's how you recover from it, and it's how you learn from those mistakes that will set you apart from the competition, that will set you apart from others in your industry. And here's a quick exercise I like to use with my one-on-one coaching clients when they get into this mindset of it's all going to blow up, right? It's all going downhill. And here's what I like to do. Go down that rabbit hole, right? If that pattern flopped, what would happen, right? What will happen if that yarn didn't do so well? What will happen if that edit didn't go well? Go down that rabbit hole step by step. What would happen? And in our example, let's say you're a designer and your first pattern didn't do so well. There was an issue or there was an error. Let's go down that rabbit hole. There's an error. What would happen? Maybe you would have a knitter or crocheter email you and ask you about the problem. Okay, then what? Then you would fix the problem, right? Then what? Then you would talk to that knitter or crocheter, explain what the problem is, apologize, fix any errata on the pattern, re-upload it to your selling platform. Then what, right? I think for a lot of us, we think that when we have a problem or something, or we make a mistake, we think that it's the end of the world. It's gonna all implode. It's going to be over. And the reality is, if you go down that natural rabbit hole of potential consequences, we really see that it's not as bad as we thought. Most times it just takes a matter of an apology to say, hey, I messed up. Here's the correction. I'm going to fix it. And let's move on. And that's why I keep harping on the fact that we use perfection as a distraction. Because if it's not perfect, then that's our excuse not to put work out there. That's our excuse that, hey, people are going to hate it and they're going to come back to us and they're going to have negative thoughts and they're going to do mean things to us. They're going to tell us that they're going to complain and ruin our whole business. When in reality, one mistake, one simple mistake is not going to implode everything, right? So go down that natural rabbit hole of figuring out what that next thing could be. What are those next consequences? And think, is that true? Chances are your business is not going to implode. And that's just the reality. If you make things right, you will continue to have an amazing career. So you're not going to lose your family. You're not going to lose your house. You're not going to be blacklisted on anything, right? Yeah, your feelings are going to get hurt. You're going to feel bad, and that's fine. Use those experiences for the next time to know exactly what to not do. So put that pattern out there. Put that tech editing service out there. Put that yarn out there. Launch it messy and know that every time you learn, you're bringing new experiences to it to make it better. Every attempt is you learning more and putting that experience into that thing to know that it's not going to be as bad as the very first time, but every time it's getting better. You're only competing against who you were yesterday. So if your first launch sucked, if your first pattern was just messy and gross, learn from that so the next one is better and continue like that. So if you're struggling to figure out your next best step, I would invite you to go join my 5-day challenge and figure out, who you're serving. Grab the 5-day challenge to learn how to market your pattern, right? The first time will be messy, right? You will make mistakes, and that's okay. The key here is for you to understand that it's not the end, but it's just the beginning. So you might be thinking, I'm not a designer, and this 5-day challenge is for marketing patterns. But there is so much information in there that translates to whatever creative endeavor you are into, right? Whether you're a tech editor, whether you are a yarn dyer, a yarn store owner, regardless of what creative thing you're doing, the information in this training will translate to help you to market your business and make more sales. So go ahead and grab it. There will be links wherever this video is in the show notes, so you can go ahead and grab it and get started today. I cannot wait to see all that you do. A rising tide lifts all boats. Bye for now.